From KCCI 8 News, this is a special presentation. Coffee with the Candidates.
Hello and welcome to our series, Coffee with the Candidates. I'm Amanda Rooker. Today, we're talking with Nikki Haley. We're getting to know presidential candidates, going to towns across the state so that Iowa voters can ask about the issues they care about. Today, we're in Adel in Dallas County. 37% of active voters in Dallas County are Republican. In 2016, 50% of voters cast their ballots for Donald Trump. And again in 2020, 50% voted for Trump. We'll sit down with three undecided Republicans from right here in Dallas County. They'll ask Nikki Haley about the issues that matter to them over a cup of coffee. But first, let's take a look at Nikki Haley's background. Nikki Haley served in the South Carolina State House before she was elected governor of South Carolina in 2010. She was the youngest governor and first minority female governor in America. In 2014, she was re-elected, and in 2016, President Donald Trump selected Haley to serve as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. I'm here today with Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, as you've seen a recent rise in momentum, in part by a lot of moderates and independents who don't want Trump to be re-elected as president. How do you continue to win over that group without isolating the rest of the party who may want some more socially conservative, far-right policies in the White House?
Well, I think the media narrative is trying to say that this is the more moderate and independent, but if you go to any of our town halls, we've got hundreds of people that are strong conservatives, we've got moderates, we've got independents, and they're all coming because they're tired of the chaos. They really want to see an accountant in the White House. They want to see someone who can get our economy back on track. They see me as a mom, and they know that we have to get our kids reading again. They know the importance of securing the border and getting that right. And they see the world on fire, and they want someone to prevent and protect us from any wars. That's the key. And so that's why I think we're gaining traction, is they know that we need a new generational leader, and the momentum is great, and it continues to grow.
What about the group of Republicans who say, I liked what Trump did in the White House. I liked how the country was then. So why should I vote for Nikki Haley when I know what I would be getting with President Trump?
I think President Trump was the right president at the right time. I had a great working relationship with him, and I actually agreed with a lot of his policies. But rightly or wrongly, chaos follows Trump. It just follows Trump. Everybody knows that's true. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and be dealing with 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive that. And I think this is even bigger than that. If you look at the recent Wall Street Journal poll that just came out, they looked at the top 3 vote getters. And what you saw is DeSantis doesn't defeat Biden. Trump defeats Biden by 4 points, which is close to the margin of error. I defeat Biden by 17 points. That's bigger than the presidency, because that's when you're winning governorships, that's when you're winning House seats, that's when you're winning Senate seats. But more than that, what do the American people win? A landslide that allows for an economy to get back on track, a landslide that forces us to get our kids reading, a landslide that forces us to secure the border, and a landslide that allows Americans to feel strong and proud again. That's what we're trying to do with this campaign, and that's what I think we're going to get done.
One of my colleagues spoke with Bob Vander Plaats recently, an Iowa evangelical leader who recently endorsed Ron DeSantis, and he was explaining why he endorsed DeSantis, and he said, well, I think Nikki Haley can win the general election, but I don't think she can win the Republican nomination. What do you say to that criticism?
Look at the polls. I'm now in 2nd place in Iowa, 2nd place in New Hampshire, 2nd place in South Carolina. We got one more fella to catch up to, and the momentum is growing. Our numbers are going up while everybody else's are stagnant or going down. We will finish this, and we'll finish this because we're touching every hand. We're going to get used to this face because I'm going to continue to be here. We're going to fight for every Iowan's vote. And then we're going to go on to New Hampshire and do the same thing. And then to my home state of South Carolina. We're going to get this done, but the momentum is on our side. And so, look, people can say all day long, I don't think she can win. Look at the momentum. The numbers are going up. The polling is going up. And that's because people say, we need a new generational leader. We can't keep living in chaos. We've got to start getting things right. And I'm determined to do that.
quickly, because we only have a little bit of time left, I want to change gears to policy. You have said that as president, you would overhaul government agencies, federal bureaucracy. I'm wondering, which agencies? Are there agencies that you would want to shut down, or what would that reform look like for you?
It's what I did as governor. It's what I'll do as president. It's all of the agencies. I'll replace the head of every single agency, whether they're doing a good job or not, because we need to freshen it up. Like I did in South Carolina, I sent people into every agency to clean it up, pull down bureaucracy, pull down regs, get rid of problem children. You have to know what bureaucrats do and know how to deal with that. I will make them start getting mission focused again, where they do 90-day benchmarks so that they can show the taxpayers a return on their investment and stop being all things to all people. And then we'll go and we'll look at their spending. We'll put all spending online, just like I did in South Carolina, and we'll start incentivizing them to give money back to the taxpayers. That's what needs to happen. We've got to first deal with what we can control, and that's the agencies. In some cases, I tweaked agencies. In other cases, I gutted agencies. We'll do whatever it takes to get those agencies back on track and focus on the mission. Government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. And right now in DC, when you look at the fact 70% of federal employees are still working from home 3 years after COVID. 75% of most of our agencies, offices, are still sitting empty. That's money that taxpayers are paying for. We have to start getting this right. So it's time to start focusing on every agency and say we're going to right the ship on every one of these.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. We're actually going to take it up a notch, and some Iowans who are undecided in who they plan to caucus for are going to ask you some questions. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Coffee with the Candidates continues right now.
Our conversation with Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley continues at the Morning Grind in Adel. We're joined by 3 undecided Iowa Republicans from right here in Dallas County. Welcome back to Coffee with the Candidates. We're here today with former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we're also here with some Republicans from Dallas County, and all 3 of you are undecided in who you plan to caucus for in January. Great. Well, hopefully we can help you make up your mind a little bit today. You have some questions that you will ask Ambassador Haley. I may jump in with a few follow-ups as well. But Katie, we're going to start with you. And Katie is a CPA for a large agriculture co-op in central Iowa. And she has a question about presidential power.
There's such a huge divide between Republicans and Democrats. Recently, executive orders have been used to overturn any policies put in place by prior administrations. How do you plan to use your executive power while working with both parties across the aisle?
Well, first of all, as a fellow accountant, I love that. Accountants are problem solvers. That I always appreciate meeting a fellow accountant. You know, I think that if you go back, this all really started with the Obama administration. He put through a lot of executive orders, changed a lot of things, and then what happened? Trump came in and reversed all of those and did his own. And then what happened? Biden came in and did his own. The dangerous part about that, it's temporary satisfaction because you're making whatever changes you want to make. But it's not good for people here, and it's not good abroad. Because now what that's got is, it's got our adversaries saying, we'll just wait the next president out. That's what you don't want. It's harder to move something through Congress, but it's worth it. Because it really does set the tone that this is not just a temporary fix. It's a permanent plan. It's good for businesses. They need to know this is going to last. It's good for the consumer because it helps when it comes to pricing and things like that. But it's good overall. It's just good policy. So the way I look at it is, you know, the one thing I saw as governor that I wanted to do was I said, control what you can control first. And the first thing I did was I replaced the head of every agency. Whether they were doing a good job or not, I wanted to freshen it up. The second thing is I went and sent people into every one of those agencies to clean it up. Pull down bureaucracy, pull down old regs, get rid of problem children. In some cases we tweaked agencies, in other cases we gutted agencies. And then I started having them do 90-day benchmarks to show the taxpayer return on investment. What that did was that got those agencies mission focused, so that they're not all things to all people. They're back to what their true mission was supposed to be. And then I saw that they were spending just because they were worried they weren't going to get the same amount the next year. And so I put all of the spending online for every taxpayer to see, and then I incentivized them to start giving money back to the taxpayers. And magic happened because they started to compete against each other. So first, you control what you can control first. There's a lot that we can do within agencies. Agency heads need to know their consumer. If it's someone in agriculture, it needs to be someone who knows agribusiness, who knows the challenges, who knows the successes. It needs to be, if it's a veterans agency, it needs to be a veteran who's lived that life. All of those things make a difference. And then you go to Congress and you give them a few easy things and let them remember what it's like to win again. And then you start pushing the harder things. That's what I did as governor of South Carolina. So when we did the easy things, later we did tort reform. We passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We passed voter ID. We paid down our debt. We cut taxes, but they were ready. They had felt the win, and they also saw I did it first. It sets the tone at the top when you do the hard things. And executive orders are meant to be really temporary emergency fixes. It's not meant to be policy. And that's what I want to get back to, because I don't want our adversaries to look at this and say, we'll just wait out another president. I think it makes more sense if we go long term on that.
Quick follow-up on that. As we look at how presidents and Congress have worked together, we've seen recently it's been very difficult for presidents that want to get something accomplished to get Congress on board. You mentioned a lot on the campaign trail just about the tension in the legislature when you served in the legislature in South Carolina. I'm wondering what you learned working with the legislature in South Carolina and seeing the disagreements that happened there and how you could apply that if you were president.
A couple of things. You know, I had a Republican House and a Republican Senate, and sometimes that's harder because all they did was just butt heads. And there were many times that I would bring them into my office and say, we're not leaving until we figure this out. Because I don't think the American people need to see the sausage making. They need to see the results that come out of it. Americans are tired. They're tired of the chaos. They're tired of the negativity. They just want to see their elected officials work. And I wanted that for South Carolinians. So I didn't let them see how the sausage was made. I brought them in, we worked through it, and then we went out unified with one voice serving the people. The tone at the top matters. The second thing is, if you look at all the polls, they've done polls for the top 3 vote getters. In every one of these polls, and recently there was a Wall Street Journal poll, DeSantis doesn't beat Biden. Trump, and I'm talking about the Wall Street Journal one, came out and defeated Biden by 4. I defeated Biden by 17 points. When you do that, it's not just the presidency. It's governorships up and down the ticket. It's state races, Senate races, it's House races. But think about the mandate that does to stop the spending, the mandate to get our inflation back on track, the mandate to get kids reading again, the mandate to get businesses having support again, the mandate to close the border, the mandate to be a strong America. That is the biggest message you could ever send to Congress, because when you go in with that kind of a landslide, they know that the people want change, and that's what we have to have. And in every one of these polls, I was 10 to 13 points. This one, I'm 17 points. This is an opportunity to change the entire structure of how our government's moving. That's what I want, is for people to start feeling like government's working for them and to stop feeling like they're working for government.
Ambassador, thank you. Ryan is going to have our next question. All 3 of our panelists here are actually parents. Ryan is a father of 3. He is a financial planner. He has a question for you about abortion.
Yes.
So thanks for meeting with us today. I feel like Republicans nationally have really struggled with messaging on abortion. It's the party that hates all women, that they want to throw teenagers in prison for having an abortion. So how do you, as leader of our party, shape that conversation and also try to set policy going forward?
I've made a point. I came out on this really early to, again, set the tone on this. Abortion is, and pro-life issues are personal for every woman and every man, and it needs to be treated that way. I personally am unapologetically pro-life. But I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice any more than I want them to judge me for being pro-life. I'm not pro-life because the Republican Party tells me to be. I'm pro-life because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children, so I'm surrounded by blessings. But let's look at where we came from. Prior to 1973, we had 46 state laws that dealt with abortion. And in 1973, unelected justices threw out those 46 state laws and said we're going to have abortion anytime, anywhere, for any reason. Now a wrong has been made right. Unelected justices said that was wrong to do, and they put it back in the hands of the people. That's where it was intended to be, as close to the people as possible. Some states have gone more pro-life. I welcome that. Some states have gone more on the choice side. I wish that wasn't the case, but the people decided. But the debate that we're having right now in the presidential is there a role for a federal law? And this is where they haven't been honest with you. Yes, I think there's a role for a federal law, but in order to pass a federal law, it takes a majority of the House, 60 Senate votes, and a signature of a president. We haven't had 60 Republican senators in over 100 years. We might have 45 pro-life senators. So no Republican president can come in and ban all abortions any more than a Democrat president can ban these state laws. So why don't we find consensus? Can't we agree to ban late-term abortions? Can't we agree to encourage adoptions and good quality adoptions? Can't we agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we agree that contraception should be accessible? And can't we agree that no state law can say to a woman, if you get an abortion, you're going to jail or you get the death penalty? Stop demonizing this issue. Let's humanize this issue. I had a roommate in college who was raped. I wouldn't wish on anyone to go through what she went through wondering if she was pregnant. Everybody has a story. Let's be respectful of the story. And I think Republicans and Democrats have handled this wrong. Democrats have put fear in women. You don't do that. Republicans have put judgment on the issue. You don't do that either. This is too personal of an issue. No fear, no judgment. Give it the respect it deserves. And let's treat it in a way that we find that consensus and stop the divide that's happening in our country.
Shifting gears a little bit, we're going to go to Kevin now. Kevin is a father of 3 teenage daughters. He's also a veteran, and he's a small business owner.
Ambassador Haley, so I've watched you in the debates, and you've indicated that you support continuing the military aid and financial funding in Ukraine. I guess what I'm wondering is, just kind of given the United States, our national deficit, the inflation, the border crisis, at what point would you as president change your mind or reverse course on sending American tax dollars to Ukraine?
Well, first I have to say, girls love their dads. And remember, it's all about raising strong girls. Strong girls become strong women become strong leaders. And thank you for your service. As a military spouse, I very much appreciate what you and your family have sacrificed. The issue of Ukraine, I feel like President Biden and to some extent Congress has done a disservice to the American people. It's very important to be transparent when you're going to use tax dollars towards something that is not inside our country. So let's go back and look at how we started. We had no better friend at the United Nations in Ukraine. They voted with us on everything. They supported every cause we did. They were just a great pro-American friend. But here you have this pro-American, freedom-loving country who was invaded by a thug, and 500,000 people have died because of Putin. The Ukrainians are fighting for their very survival. But this is where this comes in. Dictators, thugs, and terrorists always tell you what they're going to do. They're actually very transparent. Hamas said they were going to invade Israel. China said they were going to invade Hong Kong. Both of those happened. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched it. China said that Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries. That puts us at war. This is about preventing war. That's our goal all the time, prevent war. And so what you have is Congress telling you Do we support Ukraine or do we support Israel? Do we support Israel or do we close the border? They're lying to you. That's a false premise. First of all, securing the border is job number one. America's acting like it's September 10th, and we better remember what September 12th felt like. It only takes one person. Secondly, if we go and continue to support Ukraine, first of all, look at the fact that Putin has hit rock bottom. They've raised the draft age in Russia to 65. They're getting drones from Iran, missiles from North Korea. And Putin knew he was losing. That's what was happening. Putin and Iran are close. When Iran, which there would be no Hamas without Iran, when Hamas invaded Israel on October 7th, they invaded Israel on Putin's birthday. Who's the happiest person in the world right now? Putin. Why? Because America shifted from Ukraine towards Israel. We can't have war. If Congress, I don't believe in sending cash to any country, ever. You can't hold it accountable. It's not a good practice to do. Ukraine doesn't want troops on the ground. They want to defeat this themselves. They just need the equipment and ammunition to win. For us to support Ukraine, it's only 3.5% of our defense budget. The Europeans have paid in more, and they should. It's their neighborhood. If we support Ukraine and Israel, it's only 5% of our defense budget. And if we support Ukraine, Israel, and secure the border, which is job number one, it's less than 20% of Biden's green subsidies. So don't let them tell you that we can't do the one thing that government's supposed to do, which is protect Americans. National security is job number one. Keeping our country safe, keeping our children safe, and keeping us out of wars should always be a priority. We need to finish what we started in Ukraine. Because if we don't, I promise you a year from now, they're going to want to leave Israel. This war would have been over if Putin would just leave. The war would be over. If Ukraine stops fighting, they lose their country. That's what this comes down to. On September 12th, we needed a lot of friends. You have to be a friend to get a friend. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends.
Ryan has another question about something that came up at the last Republican debate.
So opponents attacked on accepting contributions from large political donors. So it isn't a secret that these people expect political favors in return later. So how do you assure us who mostly distrust Washington that this time it will be different?
I think you can look at what I've done going forward. First, I think my record matters. When I became governor of South Carolina, you didn't see me put any donors at the head of any agency. I actually put some people at the head of agencies that didn't even vote for me because they were the right people to do that. So my record in South Carolina is clean. I have never gone along with some big company or some donor. I never believed in corporate bailouts. I've always opposed those. And so that's my record in South Carolina. You look at the UN. Many companies would love for me to be nice to China. I fought China every day at the UN. I continue to be the most outspoken person when it comes to China. When these donors, first of all, who supported other candidates, and the candidates had no problem with the donors then, but now that the donors have switched their support to me, now they have an issue with it. When I go and sit down with anybody, they ask me my views. I don't ask them their views. They know where I stand. Some don't like that I'm pro-life. Some don't like that I'm hard on China. Some don't like that I want to go clean up all the agencies in DC. Doesn't matter. They know what they're getting when they support me. I don't owe anybody anything, and I won't. You won't see me make a single deal going into this race because I refuse to have my hands held when I go in. You have to go in with fresh eyes. You have to go in as a clean slate. You have to go in remembering who you work for. And I will always work and fight for the American people. South Carolinians can tell you that. Everybody that saw me at the UN can tell you that, and that's what I'm going to prove to the American people as we go forward.
I think we have time for just one more question. We're going to go to Katie, and of course we're in Iowa, so we're going to talk a little bit about renewable fuels.
I work for a large agriculture cooperative in central Iowa. A large portion of our revenue is generated through the sale and delivery of corn and soybeans to ethanol and biodiesel plants. What is your stance on the renewable fuel standard?
I support the renewable fuel standard, and I think we need to maintain it as best as we can. But more than that, when you look at energy, it is such an economic powerhouse for us if we allow it. We should be allowing as much energy production as humanly possible. We need to get the EPA out of the way. I mean, honestly, they protect sagebrush lizards more than they do whether Americans can afford their utility bill. We need to speed up as much pipelines as we can. We need to allow the Keystone Pipeline to happen. We need to export as much liquefied natural gas as we can. We need to do as much with biofuels as humanly possible. That's how you grow the economy. So that's not just good for the industry. That's good for every single American. And so I would like to see us do more of that. I think a president, as governor, I sold my businesses out. Anything that my businesses were producing, I sold out, not around the country, but around the world, because I wanted to grow our economy, and we did. We became an economic powerhouse in South Carolina. As president, I'm going to sell our products out. Let's go and make this the economic boom that it is. So we'll protect it and we'll stand by it.
Ambassador, I'm going to stop you there. We are all out of time, but thank you so much for joining us, and to our panel, thank you for joining us as well.
Our roundtable discussion with Nikki Haley will continue. You can watch that extended conversation on our mobile app or online at kcci.com. Thanks for watching Coffee with the Candidates. Have a great day.